Hello, and welcome to a brief overview of my 5110 custom WordPress theme. I'm just going to be talking a little bit and showing off a little bit of the back-end coding because I built a custom WordPress theme. The actual visual part that you're seeing is not super impressive. It's not really doing a lot, but what is impressive is the back-end that goes into it, and so I really wanted to just have a video to kind of go into what I did on the back end, what I learned. As of 2 mornings ago, I literally had no idea what PHP really was, other than that Professor Emil had used it for a couple of things. Did not know how it related to WordPress at all, and now I feel like a quasi-expert, and I'm excited to be able to use this in the future because I want to go specifically into website design for smaller clients and or agencies. So this was really useful for me as a professional development and portfolio piece. So starting with the actual visual website, this is it. We have a custom hero header section for the front page, some funny selfies of me from finals week just because I needed content and thought this would make someone laugh, a call to action button and a footer there at the bottom. And then we have a sample page that just kind of shows you what you could put on a page. It's very non-extensive. But just gives a little bit of context. And then on my post page, like if you were a blogger, this is something that you could have. The design wise, it's not what I would give a finished client, but we needed to have content on the pages to show off at least some of the functionality. So now that you've just kind of seen what is actually output, I'm going to show you the back end of what is allowing all of these things to even display on the page, because trust me, that was not a given with this project. So I'm going to start here with just explaining some of the files. So when you make a WordPress theme, it is all done in PHP. I didn't really get a great explanation as to why that is. That just is how it is, because you're going to be storing and passing back information that someone is actually editing on WordPress and then passing it through the theme and outputting it back onto their custom site, which is really, really cool. This is a great way to have custom sites, but that is still editable for people that are not website developers. So the two necessary things that WordPress actually needs for a WordPress PHP theme to be uploaded and working is the functions page and the style CSS, I believe, are the two, or at least were the two most important to me. I know you have to have the style sheet, but I'm going to be starting with that functions page. This is where all of the references as to the codes, the functions, JavaScript, CSS, importing, whatever, theme supports that allow people to have different customizations on WordPress when they're using this theme. All of this is stored in this file. Everything you see here is something I did type out by hand. There is not a ton of copy and pasting. I followed a tutorial from Follow Andrew for this, but he did it on a video, did not have raw files, just kind of followed his lead with a different Bootstrap theme that he had been using and translated it for one that I had created and customized it for my own design. But it was a good starting point to have. So all this that I am going to be showing is something I did by hand, which was really good because I feel like I learned a lot about it more than if I had looked up a solution and copy pasted it. So all of the Google fonts I'm using, all of my style sheets, a couple of functions that adds functionality on the actual WordPress site, and then all of my JavaScript that allows different animations and things that I have all lives here. So instead of that being like in a separate style sheet and then linked in the head tag, it actually goes here. With PHP, what's really interesting about how you build WordPress themes is that it all comes in like parts. Like you basically have template parts for everything. And so everything lives on a separate file, and then you call it on those actual pages and different posts and different attributes that you have to make one complete sandwich, almost in a sense. Like you have your header, you have your section, you have your footer, and those are all on separate files, but you bring them into one, like for a page, whatever your template is for a page that you want to make, and it sandwiches it together and makes it a complete product, which was different than the development I'm used to doing, and so I really enjoyed that. So the second most important is that style CSS sheet. So this is where everything that I have on my website is styled. There's also, because I used a Bootstrap theme, they had their own style sheet, so a lot of that I either just edited because it was a small change, or just overrode in this one. But as you can see, we have a lot of very specific classes, different afters, focuses for different animations on the navigation bar. We have a post title, page title, because of the different types of files that I have with the PHP. So all of this is what is styling what is on the website. And then in WordPress, you can even further customize some of these things because of the way that WordPress tags attributes, especially with like A tags, P tags, small things like that. They don't really allow you to classify them any further if you're already adding a tag to the section or container that it's in. And so you have to kind of work around that and just make a base style that can be customized in the WordPress editor. But I feel like I was able to work around that fairly well with adding different containers and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. So that is all of my style, CSS. Another one I really wanted to point out was the front page PHP. So just to kind of give you, I'm sure you already know this, Professor Emma, but for me, I did not really realize how PHP worked. So this was just a good example of how all those pieces come together. So at the top here, we have the section class, just like, like you would with normal Bootstrap HTML code. But then what got interesting was where you start adding in all of your PHP like get functions. So like this get header right here is a line that pulls in the header, which therefore pulls in all of your meta tags, all of your style sheets, all of your JavaScript, and outputs them in the head of what's actually displayed on the website without having it be on the same file. And so, for example, that header is actually pulling from my header PHP file, which is right here. So this is where we keep all of the information that needs to go in the head of the document, or in the header part if you want to have like a displayed header. So my head is all right there, and that's going to get put in when I call that PHP function every single time. And so then I chose to actually have the nav bar in my header. I wanted that on every page. And so I went ahead and just put in all of the code that I needed to have that styled and set up correctly so that it would just be the same on every single page. And you can see some more functions there with PHP. Just checking to see if this is the function for uploading a custom logo, where a user on WordPress can actually go on, add an image, and it will save and be styled to how I have my default one right now. And that just gets the information and then outputs it as an actual kind of like console.log is what I equate it to. And then this is my nav menu. That's just like the PHP WordPress syntax for what needs to happen there, so that when you go onto the WordPress website and set what pages are your menu, it contains it in this, which is pretty cool. It's just very customizable, which I thought was really neat to learn. My front page, again, if you go back here, blog info name, so that is actually outputting that code right there is this. So this is my site name. If you go into WordPress editor and do your site name, this is what it will display. It's not actually grabbing that from any hard code. It is grabbing that completely from the user. And same with the tagline. That is actually the site tagline. And as you change those titles will display dynamically. Same thing with the nav bar. They are all being pulled from what you decide on as your page or post title and what you choose to have in your nav menu. Like if I had another page but decided not to put it on the nav menu, it would not display in that menu up there. And then finally, to actually get the content, so the section class front, so that is actually all of this. All of this is being pulled by that couple lines of code. So if while you have posts, assuming that posts and content have been made to the page when you're editing it through WordPress, while that is true, it will display the posts and it will display the content. So the post is just kind of syntax for WordPress, and then the content is all of the things that I've typed in. So on the actual WordPress editor, I added all of these things, styled them, and they are there and displaying and showing up because of the code in here. And then finally, that PHP get footer, kind of like the header, links to this footer page where I have that little bar at the bottom that just says check out my other work, that links to my portfolio. And the WP footer, which is just WordPress syntax, in that function PHP file, I actually have all of my JavaScript outputting to the end rather than being at the top, just because that way it loads after everything else has loaded. And there's basically just a rule that you set as false that puts it at the footer. And so that is what is coming in there. And then the two other things to point out are the template parts. So like content article and content page, WordPress does separate by whether what you're looking at is a specific post or if it's a page. So posts are just like individual, kind of think blog post style, like my trip to Italy one that I have on the site, or just like an about me, like at this moment post, whereas a page is something that's going to remain more static and can actually like display the other posts. So a page is going to be something that is in that nav menu and is its own like housing, whereas a post is just going to be like one element within that, essentially. So these ones were super easy. You could go definitely more intense, like if you wanted to have more specific things. I personally like to leave it a little bit more blank because it allowed it to be more customizable to the user on WordPress, rather than setting things that they would have to delete. I know I hate that when I download a theme and there's really specific things that you cannot get rid of. And so I just left it as the content, and same thing, they're in this container that just keeps it a certain size, has the same padding and margin rules, but other than that, it's really up to the user as to what they are putting in to their content. This will just allow it to display. And as always with that, because of the CSS styling that I have, all of the fonts, all of the font sizing for like H1, H2 is all going to be consistent with what I have on my theme, rather than what they put in on WordPress. So it's already done for them. And that is really most of it. There's other things that I did not develop as much, like a search PHP files, the single PHP file, that is like a page one. So you can see here that from those template parts, you just call like that same function, if have post while have post is true, you get the post, and then you get template parts. And so I'm just linking to that template part content dash article. And so because this is what WordPress will essentially read when you click to a new page link, this is what it's going to read. And because that template part has the content, it's going to say, oh, get template part. What does that template part have? The content that they put on this page. It understands that and then outputs it back out to be seen on your actual web browser. So that is my project. As you can see, this was a pretty extensive file. I definitely made about 80 iterations of this, of just having to change different CSS, having to change different PHP functions. But I really enjoyed this project, and I'm excited to continue to be able to use this. I have always hated WordPress personally. I don't like it as an editor very much, and so I feel like this gave me a lot more familiarity with it and just how to customize it more, because that was what I didn't like about it. And so being able to have the Bootstrap kind of customability while also using WordPress and handing that off to someone, I think will be really useful to me in the future. And so thanks for checking out this video. You can go look at the project on WordPress, and you can go check out all of the details of the files on GitHub. And thanks for a great class this semester. I really enjoyed it. So bye.